All right, so here's the truth. You've got to give your people a reason to stay. Otherwise, someone else will. Someone else will pick them up and they will take them from you and put them in their clinic. And we've got to be honest about this. It's not really the money that's the issue. It is a factor, absolutely. Like, wages do matter for people, and now more than ever. But your best people are often the people who are at the top of the food chain anyway. So there shouldn't be a reason that they're leaving. And if it is money, you need to address that first and foremost. It should never be the factor, because you know what they're capable of and you can set realistic wages for them based on that. Now, what happens in a lot of practices that I've seen is we think motivation is what's required, but in reality, it's really a need that has to be met. And it's a bit of a reframe about what is going on, because most people come through their career going, all right, I'm reasonably motivated, I'm doing it. They get to a point where the career itself isn't challenging them enough. So the workplace needs to provide something new for them. Yes, that is what career progression is. And here's where it starts to break down. Because when we step back, we look at 40 years of evidence, which is what the foundation of self-determination theory is. These are the basic needs that everybody has to have fulfilled in the workplace. And it starts with autonomy. So in health businesses, autonomy, most people have a fairly high degree of autonomy over the work that they're doing within reason. You lose a bit of autonomy when you're working with third-party billers, for example. Starting to make sense? This is why people have frustrations in those spaces. This is why I push people towards more private paying patients, because you have way more autonomy over how you go about it, how you structure things, and you get a real say in how things work for you. So that level of autonomy is really, really high. The funny thing is, though, when people get into leadership roles and whatever, often that autonomy actually shrinks quite a lot, because now you're doing exactly what the workplace is asking you to do, or your boss is asking you to do. And if you don't understand the reasons why certain things are done a certain way, it starts to feel like, all right, well, I'm in charge, but I'm being told exactly what to do, and I don't get to really make those decisions proper. And that's where this starts to get into conflict, and it's one of the reasons why great people step into leadership and they're out the door within 6 months. Competence. Again, this is something we see, the burnout cycle for new grads. The burnout cycle is someone who's sitting in a position where they ideally want to grow their competence. They're starting from scratch. They're starting from absolute scratch, and knowing where you want to get to versus where you are, and trying to bridge that gap is really difficult. So the faster we can get people competent in the role that they're doing, the better chance we have of retaining them. This is why I advocate for really ramping therapists up quickly, because they get competence. They get used to seeing patients with multiple different things coming through the door. They've had 50 or 100 low backs that they might have looked at in a year. It's enough to just get things ticking along for them. When we look at it from a leadership perspective, it's the same idea. We want to get people up and feeling competent about it, which means we have to provide some infrastructure and some development and some layers to get them trained and feeling really good and feeling competent in the role that they're doing. The last one is relatedness, and we can see how this works in a team environment. Again, the new grad example, you want to have a team around them. You want to have people who they can go to, they feel like they belong. You guys go out as a team, you have your team meetings, your lunches, your coffee catch-ups, whatever it is. All of those things are really important. Now, say someone goes into a leadership role, suddenly they have, like, you've got your whole team over here and you've plucked one person and they've kind of separated off. It's like the old dad trick, like the thumb coming off. They've separated off into another domain where the team might sit here, and they start to feel a bit more distant from everybody else. To you, the owner, you're like, well, this is how I feel. It's good to have someone on my team for once. But to them, it's like, oh, actually, I'm in a bit of an isolated position here. I'm not the owner, but I'm also not really one of the team the way I was before I stepped into this role. And that creates, again, it's discomfort. It's a combination of imposter syndrome that's happening with them from the competence level, but then also this loss of relatedness to the team as they feel a bit more isolated from their peers, people they were friends with at one time, they're now managing. These are the challenges that are innately in these transitions, and this is what makes it so challenging to move people from being a great clinician, being someone everyone in the team gets along with, into a managerial role or a leadership role where there's a lot more challenging things that they have to deal with on an interpersonal level with their colleagues. So how did I build this in my practice? Well, I didn't start with any of this theory. I've kind of gone, okay, well, this is why it worked and this is why it makes sense. But the main thing I wanted to get was tasks off my plate as soon as possible. So I was always offloading tasks from the very beginning. And the first place it went to was obviously the front desk, the administrative staff or our customer experience team, because they had time and they could do things. And I was trying to just go, right, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you take responsibility for this? Let's get the mental load out of my head. You're in charge of the milk from now on. I don't want to think about milk. Do you know what I mean? It's just little things that we can develop. As soon as I got my second therapist, I was like, right, I think this person has enough experience that when we get a grad in next time, I'm going to pair them up and I'm going to get them doing that coaching role with them. So the earliest you can get someone into a mentoring role with your junior team members, the better. And it is just about having the right mix of staff, but developing that out. But I reckon the best thing I ever did in terms of giving everyone something that was important to them was actually, and this comes back to some of the science around your kids and developing them, is like give them chores, give them responsibilities. I love the idea of having like a portfolio, so everyone is responsible for something different within the team. I personally don't want to read the minutiae of the NDIS and be across every single tiny detail and every single billable item in there. But someone who's doing, pediatric caseload with a big list of NDIS patients, and go, right, well, can you manage this as well? Can you look through the details of that and make sure, because you need to be across it. You're very bright. You're telling me what the answers are. Can you inform the rest of the team now? And that's your portfolio. Similarly, I had another physio who's just seeing heaps of work covers. I'd even pass my work covers across to him when they frustrated me. And I'd say, well, you love, he's very financially incentivized. He knew every item code down to the cent. I was like, you know this stuff. You teach the team. You tell us when those updates come through. Someone's managing that. Someone's managing this portfolio. I'm not paying them anymore for doing it. It's not a heap of work, but it's giving them responsibility within the team environment, which means they aren't just a therapist sitting in their room seeing patients anymore. We have an interconnectedness, coming back to that idea, relatedness. These are important things to have within your practice. It doesn't matter if you've got 50 staff or 5, like that level of, okay, I have an important role within the broader functioning of this team. I'm not just an isolated cog. That's what's really important, that level of connection that keeps people engaged. And it's something we just keep needing to move on with. What changes when we implement this sort of stuff is people stop looking for the exit. They go, well, look, I've got responsibilities here. I've got colleagues I really like working with. I've got a big list of patients that I have to see. Like, my life is reasonably full. And if we're hitting that triangle, we're getting them competent in skill sets. We're always pushing them into an area where maybe we can get you more competent. Maybe we can get you better skilled at seeing shoulders. Maybe we can set you on a course next time. There's got to be something further, another carrot that we're aiming for to achieve. Otherwise, that motivation just starts to slide down. Similarly, autonomy. Someone who was once a grad is often trying to build themselves up to be able to operate without too much oversight, without the owner asking them about their caseload all the time and these sort of things. This is where the friction really happens, when someone's 9-10 months in and they're not really competent enough for you to step away from them and them to feel confident that they've got it under wraps. And then they're going, oh, well, why does my friend not have his owner up his ass? Whereas I do, and it's affecting me from an autonomy perspective as well. So you can see how all of this stuff kind of feeds through in that setting now. So this is really the whole system. This is what I do. This is what I naturally do. This is what I came to realize was working really well from our first, second, third practitioners onwards, and it just ballooned. And then we got multiple sites and multiple clinics and going, right, well, who owns which problem? Who's on good terms with who? Why don't we have great relationships across all of our team members? What's going wrong on that level? Why don't you have goals? Where are you going? Like, why has nobody sat down and made a career plan for you and really mapped out this stuff and really got granular with, okay, I want you to do this course. It's in May coming up this year. Let's set your schedule up. Let's make sure you've got some time off booked in around it. Let's get in the diary sooner. That's the level you've got to get to with every team member if you want long-term staff retention. And here's the thing, it's the biggest cost you could ever bear is when people fall out of your practice and you have to replace them and upskill. So it boggles my mind why people don't spend nearly enough time on investing in their own team. So this is the stuff we do. We help practice owners. We help build better practices. We help build better teams and better interconnectivity amongst people, because this is the stuff that gives real leverage. It's not about KPIs and managing people in with a stick. It is about creating great environments where people really love coming to work, and that's what grows your practice nowadays more than ever. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, reach out to me. There's a link in the comments. If you're really keen, book a call and let's actually have a conversation about what we can do to help grow your practice. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.